Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Newsline at noon, South Korea is awaiting a response from North Korea for its proposal to hold high-level talks next Tuesday to discuss the reunions of families separated since the Korean War and other urgent issues. The government unveils plans aimed at boosting the service sector's investment by $14.5 billion and creating 180,000 new jobs. Plus, the U.S. applauds the nomination of a new Iraqi prime minister from the Shiite coalition as it sends weapons aid to Kurdish forces battling Islamist militants in northern Iraq. These stories and more on Newsline at noon. It's noon Tuesday, August 12th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. Live from Seoul, I'm Ju.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this lunchtime. South Korea says it would like to hold a fresh round of high-level talks with North Korea early next week.
Seoul wants to discuss holding reunions for families separated since the Korean War, as well as North Korea's participation at the upcoming Asian Games in the South next month. Hwang Sung-hee starts us off.
South Korea reached out to North Korea on Monday, proposing high-level talks next Tuesday at the border village of Panmunjom. If held, it would be the second high-level meeting between the two Koreas since President Park Geun-hye took office. South Korean Unification Minister Ryoo Kihl-jae said a wide range of issues could be up for discussion.
We are planning to discuss reunions for families separated by the Korean War, as well as other issues of mutual interest.
The proposal for talks came on the same day South Korea decided to provide more than $13 million in aid to North Korea through the World Food Program and World Health Organization. The Unification Ministry said it will use the interKorean Cooperation Fund to offer $7 million worth of nutritional assistance to mothers and children in the North via the WFP and $6.3 million in medical aid through the WHO.
We will provide $7 million to the WFP for nutritional assistance to mothers and children in the North. We will also offer $6.3 million through the WHO for medicine, improvement of medical facilities, and medical training programs.
Experts say South Korea is accelerating efforts to improve interKorean relations ahead of President Park Geun-hye's Liberation Day speech on Friday, where she is expected to introduce further measures to better ties. The latest developments, coupled with Pope Francis' message of peace and reconciliation during his visit to South Korea this week, are fueling fresh hopes for a change in tone on the Korean peninsula. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Could a fourth North Korean nuclear test be coming soon? Well, the U.S.-based website 38 North says recent satellite images suggest North Korea may have completed preparations for its Punggye-ri nuclear test site, pointing to the fact that no new activity has been detected there in recent months. The Punggye-ri site was where preparatory movement for a fourth nuclear test was detected in late April. Now, if the site is in fact prepped and ready to go, 38 North says related personnel would only be waiting for an order from above to conduct a test. Pointing to past experience, it adds it would take the North about 6 to 8 weeks to conduct a detonation once an order is received. Pyongyang last conducted a nuclear test in February 2013. And over to the human rights issue in North Korea, the U.S. Senate says it wants a report on political prison camps in North Korea to be submitted to both intelligence committees of Congress. The Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2015 states the Director of National Intelligence should show how the U.S. is supporting implementation of the recommendations of the UN Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in North Korea. The bill says this should include the eventual establishment of a tribunal to hold individuals accountable for abuses. It should also cover the estimated prisoner population, the geographical jail location, reasons for confinement of the prisoners, and the prison conditions of each and every political prison camp in North Korea. In February, the UN Commission said the leadership in Pyongyang are responsible for widespread, systematic, and gross violations of human rights. And in other news, in an effort to make the nation's service industry a new growth engine, the Korean government has unveiled plans to boost investments and create new jobs. The new measures will cover sectors ranging from hospitals to resort complexes. Hwang Sung-hee has the details.
The government will cut red tape, write special laws, and promote competition to help develop 7 service sectors into a new growth engine. During a meeting led by President Park Geun-hye on Tuesday, the government identified medical, tourism, financial distribution, software, contents, and education industries as promising service sectors and confirmed a string of measures to boost investment in them. It will streamline regulations to lure foreign for-profit hospitals and provide subsidies for hospitals that attract foreign patients to Korea. The plans call for more than doubling the number of foreign patients to 500,000 by 2017 from 210,000 last year. It will also push through 4 resort complex development plans on the islands of Yeongjong-do and Jeju that will boost investments by around $8.5 billion. Regulatory reform will also take place in the nation's financial sector. The government will gradually ease the current 15% limit on daily stock price movement to 30%. It expects the measures to stimulate the local stock market and strengthen the market's price-setting mechanism, although there are concerns that it could fuel stock price volatility. Overall, the measures, which come as part of President Park's 3-year economic innovation plan, are expected to boost investment by around $14.5 billion and create 180,000 jobs. Since taking office, the president has emphasized the need for structural changes to lessen Korea's heavy dependence on exports, which make up about half of the nation's total output. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
And staying with economic news, the Trade Ministry has also announced plans to help locally oriented small and mid-sized companies find overseas customers as part of a campaign to create more jobs in the nation. Our Song Ji-sun has the details.
If things pan out as the government hopes, some 10,000 small and mid-sized companies will find new buyers overseas to more than double their sales in the next 3 years. That, ministry officials say, will likely more than triple the number of workers employed by these companies. They cited a report by the Korea International Trade Association saying job growth at exporting companies is 4 times higher than those relying solely on the domestic market. The Trade Ministry will designate scores of trading houses to help match the companies with foreign buyers and develop a program to dispatch retired trading experts to help them utilize new export channels. The government will also take steps to make online commerce more profitable for them by streamlining online documentation procedures by the end of this month. In addition, the government will set aside additional $1.6 billion in soft loans to help these new exporters link up with overseas customers and provide better insurance arrangements to protect them from currency fluctuations. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
A former UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women, Radhika Kumaraswamy, is often credited with raising international awareness of Japan's forced sexual enslavement of women during wartime. She sat down with a group of Korean reporters this week and harshly criticized Japan's lack of repentance on this issue. Yulian reports.
Marking the 50 years since the end of World War II in 1996, Radhika Kumaraswamy released a report to the UN on the history of Japan's military sexual enslavement to raise international awareness over the issue. She concluded through the report that Japan's enslavement of foreign women was a violation of international law and urged Tokyo to make an official apology.
Under their will and control. And from what we saw and heard from these comfort women, it was very clear that it was a situation of slavery. They were kept in very small cubicles and in little cubicles and were given and were made to take care of Japanese soldiers, quite a large number actually, but sort of more than 8 a day at least. So it was a situation to us of slavery.
Japan did make a partial apology back in 1993 through the Kono statement, but recently re-examined the document, casting doubt on whether its admittance of coercing women into sexual slavery was based on solid evidence. But Coomaraswamy says there's ample evidence.
Looking at some historical material on this issue, as well as interviews with Japanese women's NGOs, makes it very clear that this was mostly coercive.
She went on to say that Japan's efforts to legitimize the sexual enslavement system during that time period simply made no sense.
And of course, this happened because the Japanese army felt this was better than letting the army loose on the civilian population. There had been a lot of rapes in Nanking. So it responded by having this system of military sexual slavery. But that's not a response by any stretch of the imagination.
Expressing frustration over Japan's recent hardline stance, Coomaraswamy emphasized that Japan needs to provide the victims the compensation and justice they so deserve.
It is very clear from the evidence that this was a coercive set of practices. It is also very clear that it did not come up in the Tokyo discussions. So why not accept, do the right thing, apologize and give compensation? Why is it not being done? I think that is what
Yurian, Arirang News.
Now to the news that has left so many shocked and saddened. Oscar-winning actor and comedian Robin Williams has been found dead at his home in California. The 63-year-old, who had been suffering some severe depression recently, is believed to have taken his own life. Kim Min-ji reports.
Actor and comedian Robin Williams has died at the age of 63. According to Marin County Police, Williams was pronounced dead shortly after noon on Monday local time in an apparent suicide at his home in Northern California. Preliminary cause of death is believed to be asphyxia. His publicist says the actor had been battling severe depression of late. In a statement, his wife Susan Schneider says she was utterly heartbroken over losing her husband and best friend and asked people to remember Williams for the countless moments of joy and laughter he gave to millions. Born in Chicago in 1951, Williams studied theater at Juilliard School in New York. He entered into the homes and hearts of America as an alien visitor in the 1970s TV series Mork and Mindy. He went on to act in more than 100 television shows and movies, starring as a lovable father turned nanny in Mrs. Doubtfire and a fatherly therapist in Good Will Hunting, which won him an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. In the past, Williams had openly talked about his battle with alcohol and drugs, and he recently visited a rehabilitation center to, as he put it, fine-tune his sobriety. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
And time now for a look through some of the other international headlines we're following this Tuesday afternoon. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the news center.
Eunice, a political storm is brewing in Baghdad. Iraq's new president has named a new prime minister to replace Nouri al-Maliki, who really doesn't look like he's ready to step aside.
No, he doesn't, Mark. The rift between Prime Minister Maliki and President Fuad Massoum came to full view on Monday with that appointment. Here's Shin Se-min with the details.
Iraqi President Fuad Massoum has named a prime minister to end Nouri al-Maliki's 8-year rule, but Maliki is refusing to go after deploying special forces on the streets of Baghdad. Speaking on state television Monday, Massoum said he hopes Haider al-Abadi would succeed in forming a new government that would protect the Iraqi people and unify the country against a growing threat of radical Sunni militants. But the president's public rejection for Maliki's bid for third term has raised the stakes in the fierce battle for political control. Abadi now has 30 days to form a new government that can win parliamentary approval. However, Maliki accused Massoum of carrying out a coup against the constitution and the political process. Maliki's Shiite-dominated bloc won the most parliament seats in April's election. U.S. President Barack Obama welcomed Massoum's decision. He said it was an important step on a path towards a more inclusive government that will unite Iraq's different communities.
Urge all Iraqi political leaders to work peacefully through the political process in the days ahead. Now, this new Iraqi leadership has a difficult task. The United States stands ready to support a government that addresses the needs and grievances of all Iraqi people.
Meanwhile, Kurdish forces continue their battle against Islamic State militants in the north and west of Iraq with the help of American airstrikes. U.S. aircraft on Monday hit 4 militant checkpoints and destroyed several of the group's vehicles near Mount Sinjar, where thousands of people of the Yazidi religious sect have taken refuge. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Turning now to the latest on the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, we are now hearing 8 Chinese medics have been placed in isolation in Sierra Leone after the Ebola patient they were treating died of the hemorrhagic virus. Chinese Ambassador Zhao Yambo said the 7 doctors and 1 nurse have been quarantined for the past 2 weeks as the hospital where they were working was fumigated and closed temporarily. This, as the World Health Organization is set to make an announcement on this Tuesday on the ethics of using unauthorized medicine on Ebola patients amid rising debate on who has access to the serum and who does not. 3 non-Africans with the virus are being treated with the experimental drug ZMapp, and 2 of them are said to be making a steady recovery. Currently, there is no available vaccine for Ebola, and the latest death toll from the virus is fast approaching 1,000. In eastern Ukraine, Kiev has cleared the Red Cross to lead a humanitarian mission into conflict-stricken Luhansk amid the ongoing fighting. The international effort would include assistance from Russia, the EU, and the U.S. Ukrainian officials underlined that specific conditions were laid out to ensure that only civilians and not, quote, illegal armed gangs benefit from the humanitarian aid. The joint mission came as U.S. President Barack Obama and Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko spoke via phone Monday, following Moscow's announcement that it was dispatching aid into eastern Ukraine with the Red Cross. It is not clear yet when those deliveries would begin. And in the U.S., the FBI has said it will open a probe into the shooting death of 18-year-old Michael Brown, who was gunned down by police in suburban St. Louis on Saturday local time. In addition to the civil rights investigation, the FBI said it will monitor the probe being carried out by county police. The shooting has sparked outrage in the community. His mourning parents came out to call for justice and a fair investigation, saying they had planned to celebrate the start of their firstborn son's college years, but would now have to prepare a funeral instead. A peaceful protest in Ferguson, a suburb in St. Louis, had turned into what the town's mayor called a huge mess after several businesses were looted and cars were vandalized.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea. Connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on NEWSLINE at Noon with Mark Broom and Jin-ju.
I'm Jin-ju with
Market researcher, strategy analytics said Thursday that LG Electronics brought in about...
An appeals court in Korea has commuted the prison term of an ultra-leftist lawmaker who was sentenced to 12 years behind bars in February for plotting an armed rebellion. The Seoul High Court on Monday overturned the lower court's verdict on Lee Seok-gi and cut his sentence to 9 years. Connie Lee tells us more.
Lawmaker Lee Seok-gi was sentenced to 9 years behind bars on Monday on charges of incitement and violating national security law. The Seoul High Court also imposed a 7-year ban on serving in parliament. Back in February, a lower court sentenced Lee to 12 years in jail, but the judge on Monday commuted it, citing a lack of evidence that Lee actually conspired to stage a rebellion or had the means to overthrow the South Korean government. Lee, a member of the left-wing United Progressive Party, was arrested last September and found guilty of plotting an armed rebellion against the South Korean government in February, making him the nation's first sitting lawmaker to be convicted of treason since the 1980s. Prosecutors had demanded a 20-year prison term for Lee, claiming he led an underground group of 130 members with alleged links to North Korea. Lee has always denied the charges, with his party saying that he's a victim of a witch hunt. However, it was confirmed that the lawmaker did praise North Korea and did speak about how South Korea should prepare for an attack from Pyongyang. Lee claims that he had organized the groups solely for peaceful purposes. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Korea's ruling and opposition parties have failed to agree on a possible revision to a bipartisan deal aimed at uncovering the truth about April's deadly Seoul ferry sinking. Meeting on Monday, ruling Saenuri Party floor leader Lee Hwang-gu suggested the parties pass the bill in its original form on Wednesday and start the hearing on Monday. The main opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy's floor leader Park Geun-hye said her party would not agree to pass the bill unless the parties agree on the selection of witnesses for the hearing. The floor leaders are meeting again today on this issue. The parties agreed last week, in fact, to have President Park appoint a special counsel to look into the cause of the disaster upon receiving candidate recommendations from an independent panel. The family members of the victims rejected that, saying it fails to reflect their demands for a fair investigation and prosecution of anyone who should be held responsible for the disaster, and that includes even high-ranking government officials. Now, with the stock market having long been moving in a sideways direction, really, a large number of minority shareholders have been forced to sell up in recent years. Market research provider Chaebol.com said on Tuesday that nearly 500,000 shareholders among the 100 largest domestic companies have walked away from the stock market over the last 12 months. Most notably, SK Hynix, once a favourite for private investors, lost more than 100,000 shareholders. And while Doosan Heavy Industry and Kia Motors also suffered some really significant dips, companies like Hana Financial Group, LG Display and Samsung Electronics actually attracted more minority shareholders over the cited 12-month period, with the numbers ranging from 8,000 to 30,000.
Good afternoon, I'm Ijian with your weather updates. Although daily lows are seen in the upper teens to low 20s, it still feels hot in the afternoon in many areas. And for today, highs will be reaching into the upper 20s to low 30s. So please be aware of a big temperature gap. And morning fog in the inland regions are burning off, but it shouldn't be as sunny as yesterday, with clouds expect to move in as the afternoon progresses. With that, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The afternoon high in Seoul and Busan will rise to 30, while Daegu and Gwangju should peak at 33 and 31 this afternoon. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju Island and Dokdo will peak at 28, while Daejeon will rise to 29, while Mount Keungang hikes up to 20 later in the day. And as for the weather outlook here in Seoul, it will be a cloudy day for the next couple of days. Then the sun will be back on Friday and Saturday. So for now, a mostly to partly sunny day is in picture for Pope Francis' beatification ceremony, which is taking place on Saturday morning in Gwanghwamun Plaza. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
And those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Jinju and I will be back at the same time on Wednesday. Until then, goodbye.